Ashley and Kirsten, take it away.
All right, I'll start it off and then I'll hand it to Ashley. So good afternoon and thanks for inviting us to this awesome event. Next slide, please. We'll talk about living waterwise with drought, but first a little bit about what Valley Water is. So we're the Santa Clara Valley Water District, and our mission is to provide Silicon Valley with safe, clean water for a healthy life, environment, and economy. And we do that by ensuring a clean, reliable water supply, providing flood protection, and being stewards of the environment. Next slide, please. We serve 2 million people in our communities in Santa Clara County, businesses of Silicon Valley, and our local agriculture. And we are the water wholesaler and provide water through local retailers and also manage our groundwater. So well owners are our direct customers. We manage a diverse water portfolio, and about half of the water that we use in Santa Clara County is imported from outside the county. So local water is only about 30%. And then recycled and purified water is a drought-proof, locally controlled supply, and we're hoping to grow its share to 10% in the near future. I'll talk a little bit about that. And we also count conservation here because every drop we don't use is available for the future. Next slide. Just in case you didn't know, but when we say imported water, this is what we mean. The Delta and the Sierras, where we get the water from. These systems are managed by the state and federal government, and they rely on the snowpack to supply water. And the snowpack is currently at 16% of normal for this time of year, so not good news. Next slide. Valley Water was actually formed in the 1920s due to groundwater depletion and the land sinking, which happened by as much as 13 feet in some places. Next slide. So this chart shows how our land surface sank when groundwater was overpumped with the increasing population in Santa Clara County. And we take managing our groundwater to avoid these significant consequences very seriously, because as you can imagine, back then it was agriculture, but now if the land sank like this, everything on it would probably be cracking. Next slide. A little more background, because during droughts, we always get asked a lot of questions about how we plan for the future and do we take into account future growth and things like that. We do. We have a water supply master plan, and in 2012, our board adopted a plan that includes the Ensure Sustainability strategy that is shown here. And this water supply master plan guides our investments to meet our demands until 2040. So we worked extensively with all the communities to make sure we understood the growth patterns. So what this strategy does, securing our existing system means including, making sure our local water rights are safe, our infrastructure is maintained, and also our imported water supply contracts. The second part of the strategy is to expand the use of drought resilient supplies and conservation. And then the third part of the strategy is to increase flexibility. So in some years, there will be more water than we can use, and we need to be able to store these excess supplies. So having diversified storage is important. And this additional infrastructure could then also increase our ability to respond to any outages and challenges like droughts. So together, these three parts of this strategy help us, make the most of our existing system and not overinvest and keep things affordable. Next slide. So just because I can't help myself, I have to talk about purified water a little bit. In 2014, we opened the Silicon Valley Advanced Water Purification Center that is pictured here as a collaboration with the San Jose Santa Clara Regional Wastewater Facility. And this purification center produces purified water that is blended with the recycled water to enhance its quality so that it's used for landscape and industrial purposes. This state-of-the-art facility has demonstrated the safety, cleanliness, and reliability of advanced water purification. And it provides us a drought-proof water supply, which also allows us to use our other water supplies in other ways. So to take the next step, we are currently pursuing a project to replenish our groundwater supplies with purified water. Next slide. What we're planning on doing is constructing a new purification facility, a 20-mile pipeline through a very urbanized area to our groundwater recharge ponds in the city of Campbell. We currently use imported and local water in these ponds to actively manage our groundwater because local rainfall is not enough with how much groundwater is being used. So this purified water, which is basically treated wastewater that is put through additional treatment that is pictured here, would become an important drought-proof supply to ensure our groundwater remains at healthy levels. Groundwater is our largest storage, so from there it can then be pumped for drinking water purposes. And if you want a tour of our existing facility, they are currently online, but could be in person again soon. Next slide. Now we'll get to drought. So water supply planning does have to consider droughts, of course, because they're the most challenging to get through. And we are now in our 3rd year of drought. Specifically, our county is in severe drought. Next slide. And as you probably experienced, the first 3 months of this year have been the driest on record in the state and in our county. And here you see kind of what previous years have been like, and this year has just been very, very dry. Next slide. Our board took early and aggressive action back in June of last year to ensure we have a reliable water supply during this drought. That included declaring a water shortage emergency condition, calling for 15% conservation compared to 2019. We have also increased our landscape rebate, launched a new water conservation program, and increased our outreach. And I'll hand it over to Ashley Shannon now to talk about our water conservation programs.
Thank you, Kirsten. In addition to, as Kirsten mentioned, because we are in very dry, given our dry conditions, achieving the board's water use reduction target is essential to minimizing the risk of resumed subsidence in the North County, which Kirsten spoke about in our history, as well as wells going dry in the South County. So one of the recent implementations as of June 1st is an outdoor watering restriction ordinance. This restriction ordinance applies to customers, both residential and commercial, within the county that receive water directly or indirectly from Valley Water. So included in this is a restriction to water no more than 2 days per week for an ornamental lawn. Many water retailers in the county have specific days that they have set for this. So check in with your water retailer to see if there is a specific day per week that you're supposed to irrigate. Also, one of the ordinances, or another part of this, is avoiding irrigation during the hottest times of day where we're going to see the most water loss due to evaporation. So sites should avoid irrigation between the hours of 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. and ideally water, very early in the morning or later in the evening. Also included in this is restrictions on excessive runoff. So essentially any water that's flowing off of your sidewalks into the gutters, down your driveways, into parking structures, this is all restricted and should be avoided. So if you find that on your property, I'll go through a different program later that can kind of help you fix that. And in addition, I know we're not getting very much rain right now, but irrigating during a rain event should be avoided as well. So if you have an irrigation controller that's set to automatically irrigate no matter what day, keep an eye on that. And if you know that there's a rain event coming or you look out the window and you see one, be sure that you go out and you adjust your irrigation controller or your irrigation so that you're not running your sprinklers while it's raining, which none of us really want to do. But these restrictions are all in place at this time. It's important in an effort to conserve water and be sure that we are reaching our goals, that we try to minimize the amount of water waste that we're seeing. So we have a very robust water waste program with water waste inspectors that provide education to sites and resources about how they can correct their water waste. But if you're out in the public and you see water waste, perhaps a broken sprinkler from a neighbor or a business where their valve boxes are just oozing out water and you're seeing water waste, there's ways to report that. And so there's 3 easy ways. One of them is an app. It's very easy to take photos and add a location to that and submit it. That's our Access Valley Water app or through Access Valley Water on our website. Another is a quick phone call to our Waterwise hotline. So that's that 408-630-2000 number. And finally, through email. So you can send in, we encourage you to take photos to provide as much information about where you see the water waste. So either an address, the time of day, any specifics about it, and we will contact those sites. Oftentimes these sites don't realize that they have a broken sprinkler or that something's happening. So this is a really great way to educate people and inform them that there's some water waste going on that we want to reduce. Our water conservation programs, when we design our programs and we talk about conservation, it's important to understand how we use water in our county specifically. So in our county, we have a very high percentage of water usage in the residential area. So about 55% of the water that we use is in the residence, and about half of that is used outdoors. I've also seen information about that, about half of that water that we use outside is wasted. So there's a huge potential for water savings. We also have a very large amount of water usage in businesses. And so we have rebates and programs for businesses to apply to as well, and other programs in the agricultural sector too. But I'm going to focus a little more on our the residential programs that we have for this. So why is water conservation important? Kind of the first thing that we think of is saving money, and that is a very important aspect of it, but there's a lot of other things that are important. By saving water, it increases our long-term water supply reliability, and it knows that we have enough water for our growing population. It also reduces the amount of our dependence on imported water. So this is leaving water in the Delta system and in our streams and our creeks. It also reduces pollution. So a lot of that water waste that we were talking about with runoff from your landscape, that's actually carrying pollutants with it. So fertilizers, pesticides, excess nutrients from your landscape, that's getting washed into our water supply, our stormwater, and eventually our creeks. So we want to reduce that amount of pollution, and that comes from efficiently using water in our irrigation. And lastly, and a lot of people don't make this connection, but it reduces greenhouse gas emissions. The transportation and treatment of water is one of the largest energy users in the state of California. And so by reducing the amount of water that we use, we can significantly reduce the amount of greenhouse gases that we produce. And so all of these things are, they're connected, and why water conservation is so important. So in what we offer as far as water conservation programs is we offer programs, services, rebates, and some giveaways. We have basically something for everyone. We have our indoor water conservation, which is items like free water conservation fixtures, which I'm going to get into a little bit more with our e-cart. We have sub-meter rebates. So if you live in a multifamily complex like a condominium or a townhome complex, we have ways of individually metering these different units. And so if people are aware of how much water they're using, they're much more likely to conserve. And then we also have kind of custom rebates for commercial sites. So if you are with a business or you work with a large commercial site, encourage them to take a look at their processes. But as I mentioned, a lot of our water conservation is now focused in the outdoor sector. And so we have a number of programs and rebates. A couple of them I'm going to get into in detail. But our Waterwise program, which I described, we have a Greywater rebate for installing, for essentially diverting your clothes washer water out into your landscape. So this allows for a drought resilient form of water source. But I'm going to get into about 3 of our programs specifically to go a little bit more in detail, because these are ones that you can easily access and are applicable to most sites. And so I'll discuss our e-cart, our free fixtures, our Waterwise outdoor survey program, and lastly, our landscape rebate program. So we launched an online shopping cart about a year ago. We've always given away these conservation items, but now we've made it really easy for residents within our county to log in and essentially browse our shopping cart and choose items that they're best needed for their home. So this might be efficient shower heads. If you have a leaky toilet, you might look at getting a new toilet flapper, things like hose nozzles, signs for your yard, all sorts of things. So if you visit, you can either navigate through our our site, which is watersavings.org, which I'll show later, or directly through the URL that is mentioned there. But we will mail out these items to you free, and they're a great way to immediately save water without really changing much behavior in your home. Another program that we offer is our Waterwise survey program. So this one is especially valuable. It is a free irrigation service. We have irrigation professionals who will visit your home, and they basically do a rundown of your irrigation system. So they will look at your irrigation schedule. They'll make recommendations if they feel that the schedule is perhaps overwatering or underwatering. They'll run through your system and flag, breaks, sprinklers that are working inefficiently. And lastly, they'll make recommendations for upgrades. And many of these upgrades are actually eligible through rebates through our landscape rebate program. So this is available to residential sites in our county. If you are a customer of San Jose Water Company, they have an equivalent program called their CATCH program. So you would go through that specifically, but otherwise everyone else in the county can participate in this. Small multifamily units or small commercial sites are also able to participate in this. And so it's a great way of kind of having someone take a look at your landscape and showing you where improvements can be made and where inefficiencies are, and that can be fixed. And then we have our landscape rebate program. This is perhaps one of our most popular programs. It's a very robust program, and we've seen an incredible uptick in applications due to the drought. Right now, we have rebates of up to $3,000 for residential sites, and as of June 1st, up to $100,000 for commercial, multifamily, and institutional sites. And actually, some of the retailers in our area actually offer additional costs. We call them our cost sharing partners, and we partner with them to add more funds. And so within this landscape rebate program, we essentially have now 5 categories. So it's our landscape conversion, which I'm going to show some examples of, which is essentially removing lawns or pools and replacing them with low water use plants. We have a large commercial program. This is for really large expanses of lawn and conversion to mulch. We have rebates for upgrading those standard controllers, like I mentioned, that may not be able to predict when rain is coming. Upgrade those to a weather-based system that can actually make those adjustments for you. And then irrigation equipment upgrades and rainwater capture. So I'm going to quickly show just an example of a project and some example projects and kind of how this project will go through our rebate program. So customers will submit an application before starting. That's important with all of our programs. We do require pre-approval. We're looking for an existing lawn on site, although at this point your lawn can be pretty ugly, pretty dead looking. As long as it's still there, it's okay if it's brown. And this particular site, you can see, the amount of wasted water running off from an inefficient irrigation system. And so there's great potential for this site to be converted. So this site, goes through our process. We will measure the site either, with Google Earth images or out on site. We'll measure the exact square footage of the area. Customers will submit a plant list to us. This one had a pretty detailed plan, which is not always required, but very helpful for us to see. And once they get the go ahead, they'll start installing their landscape. This landscape in particular is actually using sheet mulching, which you heard a bit about in the previous presentation, which is probably the most sustainable way that you can convert your lawn area. And in the end, they ended up with a landscape that was highly functional. They incorporated a few different components. So they actually incorporated a rainwater capture component, which is the rain garden that you see on the top that helps keep water on site. They also installed Greywater system, which you can't really see as much in this. But they had the inclusion of plants, permeable hardscape, and mulch over their landscape, which is essentially the requirements of this program. Just a few other examples of our landscape conversion, because I know that the aesthetics of a landscape is a very personal choice, and a lot of times people feel that a drought tolerant landscaping might mean lava rock and cactus, which isn't the case. There can be a wide variety of styles. Landscapes can look very lush and still use a low amount of water. So from very kind of informal cottage garden to a more formal look. There's a lot of different variation, and it's fun to see the different projects that come through. And you might be seeing, we do quite a bit of outreach. And so you might be seeing our Say Yes to Water to Savings Water campaign that's out. We are encouraging folks to reduce by 15%. That might mean about 20 gallons per day at your home, although this will vary per sites. And we just want to let the county know we are in a severe drought, and it's going to take all of us making some adjustments in order to meet our conservation goals. All right, and so that is it for us. I know there's a lot of information, but Kirsten and I are available for questions.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess there were some questions early on about just the program and the June 30 availability. So Kirsten kind of took care of that, I think, online, and yeah, it just tied in with fiscal year funding. But anyway, thanks, Kat Wilson. There was also a question about hardscapes qualifying for rebates from lawn to garden, and it looks like you were kind of covering that, and I just wondered if you had more to say about that.
Yeah, so we do allow permeable hardscape. So this might be flagstone set on sand, pavers that allow water to percolate either directly through the paver or through the joints around the pavers. We do first have a requirement of the amount of plant material that has to go in. But if folks meet that requirement first and then want to install hardscape in addition to that, that is allowed through our program. But we don't allow any hardscape that would inhibit water from percolating back into our groundwater. So, no concrete, asphalt, bricks that are mortared in place.
Mm-hmm. So permeability would
Yes.
be the deciding factor. Now, there's some questions about kind of heat island effects with hardscapes, and is that considered in the plan? Looking at the plan.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we first have that requirement that folks have to install enough plant material that it's going to reach that at maturity, they're going to cover 50% of the area. So that requirement in itself, limits the amount of hardscape that's going on, and also ensures that folks aren't just removing their lawn and replacing with hardscape. That does contribute to the heat island effect. So we do require that, some plant material be put in to offset that. We also don't rebate for the installation of artificial turf, which can, heat up significantly as well. So that's one element that is not included in our rebate.
Again, yeah, permeability, certainly on that. There was a question about this program is geared to Santa Clara Valley specifically. We will have Bosca and actually Cal Water areas as well presenting, so we'll get that, but obviously yes, this is Santa Clara County, and the Hofsabert had I'm sharing this with everyone, had I guess an installation of a drought tolerant landscaping on an existing pad, so I just share the architectural daily link to that as well. And there was just other question on a Greywater system, and so that sounds like it's under in your program, but again, just wondered if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, I know I could speak for hours on our program, and so
well, unfortunately,
yes,
just a
I know.
So
yeah, we do have a rebate for Greywater systems. It's a $200 rebate, although again, in some cost sharing areas, they double that. But it is for a simple laundry to landscape system. So this is not one that's going to require you to cut into your plumbing system, similar to a shower, shower Greywater system. But this is a simple laundry to landscape, diverting your laundry water out into the landscape. And yes, we do offer a rebate for that. Again, it's for anybody applying for rebates should apply first and not start their project until receiving approval. But yes, we definitely offer that rebate and have some really great resources on our website, including video and handouts about Greywater systems.
Okay, and then I last had a question for Kirsten, because just like you, I can't stop talking about water purification, and just in terms of in the planning, I know there's always been this thing. I mean, currently 5% of the mix, a goal to double that to 10 is now. I seem to remember is 15 on the table in terms of planning? I mean, even further growth to 10, but
Well, we go by amount. So the goal of the board is to increase it to 10% of our water supply portfolio. What we're looking for by 2040, and our board just approved last June a countywide water reuse master plan, which you can find on our website, is to go to 24,000 acre feet. So in the water supply business, we measure things in acre feet, which is basically the amount of water that would cover 1 acre, 1 foot deep. So 24,000 acre feet is the goal through 2040. But you know, we may need more, and we will always be looking at how much we need. And that's for potable reuse. And then in addition to that, of course, the wastewater treatment plants in our county, there's 4 of them, have their non-potable recycled water systems as well.
yeah, and that has been a bit of a change too, because it used to be all about non-potable, and but you know, I think it is something that's been proven. There is this kind of subtle, you know, this works, and yeah. So in terms of the mixing of aquifers with potable.
Yeah, I'll definitely put our tour program in the chat so that people can sign up for a tour. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's great to, yeah, and it would be great when it's in person, but until then, it's definitely worth everyone's look, because this is a major help these days. And oh, okay, it looks like you've already done it. So,
yeah, we could use everyone's help because it is definitely safe. We actually had a PBS crew come out and interview health, public health, authorities too. And so there's still some reluctance in doing potable reuse, but really all water on the planet is recycled, and we're just speeding up Mother Nature. And it'd be good for everyone to learn about the technology so that we can improve public perception of the water.
yeah, I'm actually. I mean, there used to be a lot of resistance early on, that was almost theoretical, but I think that has really seemed to move away. I know you do polling and everything else, and I don't know if it doesn't seem like it's that much of an issue anymore, and nor should it be, really. The filtration is quite extensive, and actually it's especially when you go through reverse osmosis, it's kind of like, well, you're really going to have to start putting things back, because of the filtering is so strong. So anyway, Ashley and Shannon, Ashley and Kirsten.
Happens a lot.
I know. I'm looking at the names on the thing. But thank you very much for this presentation. This two-part presentation in terms of some of the kind of the resupply issues as well as the conservation, and they're both very important. As we head into the summer and frankly into the future. So thank you very much for coming today. And
Thanks for having us.